book lovers, it's Jenny at Julia Baby Jen's Reading Room, and this is part 1 in my favorite complete series. Okay, so I apologize if the quality of this video is not like my other ones. My phone, which I usually used to record, is not working properly. I don't know what's wrong with it, but the video camera is not working. So I'm using my laptop cam today, which I haven't used forever. So and I kind of forgot how. So we'll try this. Okay, so favorite series. Today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite series, and I say complete series because this means that I have read every book in the series. There's a lot of other series that I'm not going to feature in these videos that I just have not finished yet. So I didn't really want to recommend the series when I haven't read them all. And there's a lot of series that I'm in the middle of, which I need to finish. But these are the ones that I have finished, read all the way through, and loved. And this does not include trilogies or duologies. These are all YA or MG books. I have quite a few MG series that I love. So a lot of these will be for younger readers, or marketed for younger readers, I should say. But I think they're just as good for anybody who reads YA. I think they're really great series. And if you've noticed how empty my bookshelves look behind me, it's because all the books are sitting on the floor because I'm going to talk about them. So here we go. Okay, the first series I'm going to talk about is Harry Potter, which is a favorite series among lots and lots of people, and it kind of surprises me when I hear people who have not read it yet, or even read one book. There's been people I know who read one book and didn't like it and stopped. And honestly, isn't this beautiful, by the way? This is my new Harry Potter book set I got for Christmas, and I love this set. And I'll show off my other books too, because I have a lot of Harry Potter books. Here's the actual original hardcover. Not all of these are first edition, because I started the series after it had been out for a little bit. I started when the 5th book released. No. I started when the 4th book released. I started reading them. So here's first one, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Basically, to give you a quick overview of the series, if you don't already know, which if you don't, you're living under a rock. The book is about Harry Potter, who he thinks is an ordinary boy. He's an orphan. The book starts with he's 11 and continues up till he's 17. And he is an orphan and being raised by his horrible aunt and uncle and their son, Dudley. And treated very inferiorly and has a pretty horrible life. The book opens up with some weird things happening, and he's always had weird things happen to him. But he basically finds out that he's actually a wizard, and he's being sent to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to learn how to be a better wizard. And he finds out basically that he's in the middle of some horrible plot with this horrible evil wizard, and is the cause of his parents. He's not the cause, but he's in the middle of the whole thing with his parents' death, and he's basically considered a hero in the wizarding world, and he knows nothing about any of this because he was raised as a normal child. So the stories are all at Hogwarts, which is the coolest place, the coolest school ever, and I read these. I know a lot of people read them when they were kids. I obviously was not a kid when they came out. I guess I don't remember whenever Goblet of Fire came out, so when my kids were kind of little, I guess. So early 20s, mid-20s, I guess, was when I started reading them. And actually, I kind of heard about them, but not very much. And I think it was about the time that they were talking about making the first movie. So my mom bought me and herself the first 4 books in hardcover to read, and so we both loved them. And I plowed through these books like they were nothing. They were just, I fell in love with them. And then ever since then, every time a new book came out, I went to the midnight release party, bought it, and I went to all the movies, of course. I like the movies too, but not as much as the books. So that's the basic premise of the book. I'm not going to tell you more than that because I don't want to spoil everything, although you might have heard more. But so this is the first book. Now, I can understand why people might read the first book and not really want to continue on the series, but let me say that if I like the first book, the next 6 books are like 10 times as better, if not better than that, than this one. It gets better and better as the story goes on. This one's a little more simple because Harry's 11, and the point of view is from Harry, even though it's a third person narration. Um, you're seeing everything through Harry's eyes, so it is a little simple because he's only 11. But as we get further in the series, things get more complicated, and it does kind of mature as the series goes on. I guess it becomes more YA by the end of it. The other thing that I think these books are masterfully written. This is my favorite series, easily, that I can think of. Every little detail in these books has a reason it's there. There's nothing left to chance. Everything is planned out from the get-go. You'll find things that happen in the last couple books that were way back in these books, and it just continues. You learn more and more and more as you go along, and there's all these twists. Every book has major twists, and you do not see them coming. J.K. Rowling is a masterful writer. They are just, the plot points on these books are just really good, and it's refreshing to read something that's done so well. She did spend a lot of time writing these, and it's very obvious. The other thing is the characters. The characters are just so three-dimensional. Even Harry. I mean, Harry is by far probably one people's most favorite character, but he's not perfect. He makes mistakes all the time, although he's basically a very good person. But I just love that, and all of the characters are like that. Even the best characters, the best of the best, have flaws and have made mistakes, and I really, really love that. And even the evil characters, at times you can almost sympathize with them. So I loved how full and fleshed out the characters were. It was just really well done, and you get so much detail, and it's just amazing. The other thing is the world building. She's created this whole world within her own world, this magical world, and it all makes sense in some weird way. And it's like you're there. You just get absorbed in the story. It's so well done, and there's just so much detail to all of it. So that's why there's such a huge fandom, I think, because there's just so much I mean, you can reread these books forever and still find things that you didn't catch before. So yeah, they're just very deep, well-written books, and if you have not read Harry Potter, I don't know what's wrong with you. But here's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and these, you can tell I reread these books a lot because they're kind of beat up. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and this was my favorite book until the last book. I loved the Goblet of Fire. I think it's because there's a huge turning point. This is where the books start to turn really dark, and I just really felt like this was like the pivot point of the whole series, and I love this book. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is the longest book in this series, and I think a lot of people's least favorite book, maybe Sorcerer's Stone is another one, but a lot of people didn't like this one as much because it is very dark and depressing. Harry's basically going through a teenage crisis. Well, he's going through an adult crisis as a teenager, I guess. So there's just so much going on in this book, but I still really, really liked it. There's some really good things that happen in this book, and yeah, I like the Order of the Phoenix. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, I think next to Goblet of Fire, this is my next favorite. I loved this book. This book, it's like one extreme to the next. Half of it is hilariously funny. Oh my gosh, laugh out loud. I still laugh while I'm reading it. Basically a lot of it is teen drama and relationship squabbles and things like that. Some of it's sad, but a lot of it's really funny. And then the other half of it is really sad. So we needed that funny to balance it out. But yeah, this is basically right before the end, and everything seems the worst by the end of this book. Seriously, in a way, the last book is The Deathly Hallows, which is my favorite Harry Potter book. I loved it. It was perfect. But basically, these are basically like one big book. there's not a real big distinction. It almost doesn't feel like a real ending at the end of this one, because there's so much unsaid and undone, and everything's up in the air, and it's the only book that has that. The rest of them kind of, even though they're still they're not ended, the series isn't ended, they have a clear-cut ending to them. So this one was a little disappointing when you read it. The first time I read it, I was like so sad and depressed, and then after I read it again, I felt a little better going over the details. But yeah, it's just the ending of this book is really sad. But then, of course, there's the Deathly Hallows, which explains basically the entire series to us people who did not really know what was going on. Although I had a few guesses, I still didn't know everything. There were still lots of twists that I was not expecting. So yeah, and this was everything you could want in an epic ending. It was really well done. And the movies, I think the Deathly Hallow Part 1 and Part 2 were definitely the best movies in the franchise, and they really felt more like the book to me than the rest of the movies. So those movies are just fabulous. Oh, I have one other, well, I have a couple paperbacks. I have Sorcerer's Stone paperback and Prisoner of Azkaban paperback. And then I have this book, The Goblet of Fire. This is actually the UK paperback edition that my mom brought me back from London, because she knew this was my favorite, besides Deathly Hallows. So, and here's the back illustration. So I love this one. And it's Harry Potter, which I'm going to have to edit because that got kind of long. I knew it would. That's why I don't know how this is going to take a long time to talk about my favorite series. Okay, so there's our Harry Potter. I don't think you can go wrong with it. If I don't understand people who don't like it. I really don't. So I guess it's just a personal thing that you didn't connect with it at all. But I don't see how you can't. And I guess maybe a lot of it too is don't read the book and just take it at face value that it's this fun adventure. I mean, it is. But there's a lot deeper things going on behind all that. So, like I said, very deep series. All right. We'll talk about a series that kind of reminds me of Harry Potter that isn't as popular as I think it should be. It's another middle grade, and these are much quicker reads than Harry Potter. And they're a little more middle grade in feeling, I guess, but the characters are great. The world building's awesome. There's lots of mysteries and twists. They're very well written, and they're just fun. They're really fun reads. If you like Harry Potter, I think you would really like the Septimus Heap books. So this is a Septimus Heap series by Angie Sage, and I have all but one. I don't have the last book, which released last summer. I checked out from the library. I haven't bought it yet. I did have this book in hardback. I had them all in hardback. I bought them as they came out, and my kids lost this one. My kids love this series. Love it. The boys especially. So I replaced it with a paperback for now. But all of the words in it have different spellings. Like you see magic. Usually where you would have an I, there's a Y. And there's a few other differences, like sometimes they'll add an extra K on when you don't need one. That's really fun. And I'm just going to read the back of what the basic premise of the first book is. And then the other ones, I'm not going to tell you a lot about it because it gives away the ending to this one. But the first book, Magic. Septimus Heap, the seventh son of the seventh son, disappears the night he is born, pronounced dead by the midwife. That same night, the baby's father, Silas Heap, comes across an abandoned child in the snow, a newborn girl with violet eyes. The Heaps take her into their home, name her Jenna, and raise her as their own. But who is this mysterious baby girl, and what really happened to their beloved son Septimus? So I believe, yep. So the first couple chapters talk about how that all happens, and what the premise that you got there. And then it moves on, and basically the story starts 10 years later, so when the girl is 10, when Jenna is 10. It wasn't too hard to figure out the twist in this one, but it was still really fun. And the characters in these are fabulous. It's like kind of like Harry Potter, a whole bunch of characters. It's basically an entire world built. Now this is high fantasy. This is its own fantasy world. It's not like Harry Potter where it's in our own world. This is its own world, and yeah, magic and dragons and wizards and just all kinds of things. The other thing I really love about this series is that the parents or the adults in the series are the ones who are constantly making stupid mistakes. Constantly. It's always the kids who are smarter than the parents, which I think is kind of funny. And let's face it, sometimes very true. So I love that about it. And so I could see where children really love this series as far as that. But I enjoyed it just as much. So the first book is Magic. The second book is Flight, and this is where we get introduced to the dragons. The third book is Physic, and this is where we learn a lot about alchemy in the series. The fourth book is Quest, and this is kind of where the time travel elements start coming in. Book 5 is Siren, and this one is basically its own really fun adventure at sea, and it's a really good one. I think actually this is my favorite out of the series. That one, or Quest. Book 6 is Dark. And this is where lots of evil things happen in the series. And the last book is Fire, and it wraps it all up. And there is going to be a spin-off series, I guess, Angie Sage did say, because there's still so much to be written about this world. So it's a very good series, and if you liked Harry Potter, I really recommend this one. And they're quick reads. They're really fun. Let's move on to a YA series, shall we? So, I'm going to talk about the Gone series by Michael Grant. The only book I own is the last book, Light, and I have it as an art. But the Gone series is a sci-fi dystopian series. It's kind of like a sci-fi spin-off of Lord of the Flies basic premise, I guess. So basically what happens is this little town in California, Perdido Beach, it's a normal day, and suddenly all of the adults, anybody over the age of 15, vanishes completely. They're gone. And all that's left in this town and the surrounding area, which is quite large, is these children. And so these books take place over the course to a year, if not over that. So they're stuck fending for themselves in this little town. And they're isolated from the rest of the world. I'm not going to explain exactly how all of that happens because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it. But there's 6 books: Gone, Hunger, Lies, Plague, Fear, and Light. And each book gets better and better in my opinion, and the ending was fabulous. I love this whole series. This is another one that's really, the characters are really, really good, and just the crazy situations. This is the kind of stuff that would give you nightmares. I mean, there's some horrible things that happen to these kids. And it has that really cool sci-fi element to it, which you just never know what's going to happen next. And it's just really good. I really, really enjoyed this series. So, really good. And I recommend that you read it if you haven't. Alright, the next series I am going to talk about is another middle grade / YA as it gets older kind of series. This is called The Time Quintet by Madeleine L'Engle. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right because it's, yeah, whatever. I did not read these books as a child. I read them fairly recently, I guess a few years ago. I read all 5 of them, and I loved them. They're really good. It's a sci-fi time travel type story, and it takes place over a couple different, I think over a 20-year period. So there's different main characters in every story, but it all ties together. It's all related, and it's just really well done. It features the Murray O'Keefe family, and there's several in the series. Now, these are not the only 5 books that feature this family. There's another 3 books that aren't considered part of the Time Quintet, but are some of the same characters. So there's a couple of like spin-off books, and then there's the Austen books, which is kind of like a parallel series almost, which I have not read that one. But yeah, so I just really love this series. If you like time travel or sci-fi, and I just think the books are just really good. It's really ahead of its time. The first book was written in 1962, and it's hard to believe that when you read it. It doesn't feel like a really old book. The most recent book was written in 1989. So there was a large span in between these 5 books. But yeah, I think that they're really, really good. And it gives you a little chart of all the characters in the books, because there's a lot that goes on, and there's not a lot of bridge between the stories. So sometimes it's like, okay, why is this person now not here? And so this kind of explains a little better. But it starts out with Meg and her 3 brothers. There's twins, Sandy and Denny's, and Charles. And Charles is kind of a special kid. And so basically, and her father is a scientist. Actually, both of her parents are, and that's kind of how this all gets started. But yeah, it's basically a time travel, sci-fi, really good story. So the first one is A Wrinkle in Time, and the first couple of books are really small. They'll take nothing to get through. The second book is A Wind in the Door. The third book is A Swiftly Tilting Planet. The fourth book, which is my favorite, is Many Waters, and this actually is a Noah's Ark story. The twins end up back in Noah's Ark time, but it's completely redone, and it's really, really good. And number 5 is An Acceptable Time. So I recommend all of those books. I just think they're great. And one of these days I'll read the Austins, and I'll let you know if I think those are good too. But yeah, I really loved this series. Alright, let's go back to YA, and I'm going to talk about Vampire Academy. This is actually the last book in the series, Last Sacrifice, and it's the only one I still own. I gave away the rest of them. Mainly because my library has them all, so if I want to reread them, I can check them out. But Vampire Academy is 6 books long. There's Vampire Academy, Frostbite, Shadow Kiss, Blood Promise. Oh man. Yeah. Shadow Kiss, Blood Promise, and then Spirit Bound, and Last Sacrifice. And it builds and builds the story all the way through. I really like the twists in this one. I love the characters. That's pretty much the best thing about the series, is the characters. It is about vampires, but it's a whole new take on them, and I really liked the whole newness to that whole thing. And it's primarily about 2 best friends, Rose and Lissa. Lissa is an actual vampire, and she's called a Mirai, and they are a race of vampires that are basically like royalty in their world. And they, for some reason I can't think of the name of what they call them, but basically there is a race of kind of half vampire, I guess. They're not really vampires, but they are more human, but they have a little higher strengths and senses and that kind of thing. And they are trained to protect the Mirai from attack. There's a very evil vampire that's out and about that will kill them and basically feed off their soul. And it gets kind of complicated, but basically Lissa is the last from her royal family, and Rose is her best friend, and they have a very strong bond. And Rose can actually connect to Lissa and almost like, I guess, kind of see in her head, but basically like be able to see what Lissa's seeing if she concentrates, and it's like a trance type thing. So Rose is tough as nails girl, and Lissa is not so much. She's a little more princessy, and so Rose is basically trying to protect her through most of these books. Other dramas and other things happen, and Rose ends up at the center of everything. She's kind of the one who breaks all the rules. So anyway, that's the basic premise of the book, and all kinds of things happen. There's just so much drama and so much excitement, and so much happens, and it's just really good. There's tons of twists, and the whole series is just really awesome. Rose as a character is one of my favorite characters. She is just amazing. I haven't seen the movie yet. I really want to. It probably won't be as good as the books, but I would like to see it. So, but yeah, I do recommend this series, even if you're tired of vampires, because even though it is about vampires, it's a whole different thing, and it's like its own little society, and it's just very different. It reminds me more of a European monarchy society type thing. So it's just really different, and it's really interesting, and I really loved it. All right, the last books we're going to talk about today, because the video is getting super long, is a series that a lot of people have already read. If you haven't, I don't know what's wrong with you. They are the best, easy, fun books to read. It is a middle grade series, but I love it. I am talking about Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan, and I really love this series. Now, I haven't read through, of course, the spin-off series off of this one, the second series, which is the Heroes of Olympus, is not finished yet. The fourth book just came out. I think there's at least one more book. I have only read the first two, so I'm behind on that series, so I couldn't tell you. But so far, I like that series better than this one even. And I'm going to talk about the Kane Chronicles when I do trilogies. But this series is great. It's 5 books, and they're fun, adventurous reads, action-packed. Basically, it's all about Greek mythology, and it's about these demigods, and they are half god, half human. Basically, one of their parents is an actual god, a Greek god. And this is about Percy, who is the son of Poseidon. And basically, there's a prophecy that goes through these entire books, and Percy is at the center of it. And all kinds of things happen. Basically, Percy is sabotaged throughout the series by the gods, who are not very kind to their children. Some more than others. But it's like a whole bunch of games. They're up on their little cloud having fun with all the humans, which is basically what mythology says. So they're really, really fun books, and they get better all the way through. As far as my favorite, it's probably the last one, but then the Battle of the Labyrinth I really, really like too. So the first one is The Lightning Thief, and the second one is The Sea of Monsters, and the third one is The Titan's Curse. Fourth one is The Battle of the Labyrinth, which was my favorite until the very last one, and it might be tied because I really do like this one. And the last one is The Last Olympian, which has an epic battle ending, and I really loved it. So these books are great. I mean, they're quick, easy reads. They're just really fun. They're hilariously entertaining. It's just really awesome, fun series. And if you haven't read it, you're really missing out. All right, so that is part 1 of my favorite series. Leave any comments below on what your thoughts on these series are if you've read them. And stay tuned for the part 2 of this series, I guess. And everyone have a good day. I will talk to you later. Bye.